Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to W.R. Frady's Live Ghost Stories by the Fireside. I'd like to begin by giving a few shout-outs this evening. First of all, to my good friend Chad in Moonrunner 83 and Megan McDuffie, who just released a new single today called Phantoms. If you're on Spotify and or iTunes or Apple Music, definitely go in and look up the song Phantoms by Moonrunner 83 and Megan McDuffie. That was just released today. Also, I'd like to make a few announcements regarding Legends of Lacy Road Volume 1 is still in the works. I wanted to make sure I give good quality stories that you'll want to read time and time again, as you have joined me here at the Fireside to tell these tales, be it Legends of Lacy Road or just original ghost stories or adaptations from folklore and favorite authors like we see from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft. So, also make sure you go to visit theebbinstone.com, home of all things W.R. Frady. I need to figure out how to get some of these videos also up on W.R. Frady so that you can go and watch them time and time again. And hopefully soon I'll have all 3 seasons all over on YouTube so that they will be there to be treasured time and time again, from day one where I began in Helen, Georgia, to the day to right up to this moment. And all the way through this season. And however many more seasons we do this. As long as you demand it, I'll keep doing it. Anyway, W.R. Frady's official website, theebbinstone.com. It's home of the Legends of Lacy Road and Tales for the Fireside. It's home for Whispery Hollow in the Lovelady Township. It's also the home of the Vampire Killer and the Wise Oak. And all things W.R. Frady, even the Ebbinstone Tower itself. And be sure to stop in and check into the Cantankerous Cauldron, for you never know what's brewing in the old cauldron and what's to come for W.R. Frady. It might be new art projects. Sorry, my Instagram people. And okay, here we go. Now, just having to fix that angle a little bit. But it might be new stories, it might be new art, it might be other projects. But also make sure to go by Wolf Moon Studios, where I'll have featured artists, be it artists from visual and sketch and paint artists, including my own original art. And I will also probably try to have featured some of my good friends who are into music and things like that, showcased there, as well as also and many other things. So, keep a tab on that. So, thank you for joining me again. And with a sip of this evening's water. Say hello to everyone, Poe. Let's begin. Tonight's stories will be focused on ghostly creatures, animals, more specifically. See, we always hear tales of people and things that roam the night. Sometimes creatures that roam the night we've never dreamt of even encountering before. But sometimes hauntings come in the form of animals. Tonight's stories will bring light, shed light to these shadows. And my first one, which is an upcoming legend of Lacy Road, and a favorite of those who have heard it in the past, especially around fires and around Halloween campfires and parties, and it's chased by a fiery steed. It was long ago, back in the early part of the 20th century, when roads were still, while highways were common, they were rather crude, and it still took quite a long time, sometimes an all-day trip, just to travel from town like, say, Morganton or Valdez to places like Winston-Salem, or maybe even Charlotte. So when going on a trip for that, you planned for the day. You know, the fastest cars were pretty much, the automobiles were just really coming into style, and, you know, the major one around this time was the Model T. And these cars weren't very fast, so along with crude highways and, you know, moderately speed, cars with moderate speed, an all-day trip, a short-term car ride for us today would be an all-day trip, and such was this particular day when Randolph and Eloise Hebner were traveling to Winston-Salem for business for the day. And they had spent the day in Winston-Salem and made the day of it. Like I said, it was an all-day thing at that time. And had gotten a late start back. The old Brookford Highway, it wound and round and brought them back in toward Hickory, and it had begun getting late. Now, headlamps were kind of like just that. At that time, they were more very, very dim, just enough to light the way. But even then, after a long day, you get exhausted. So as the shadows were closing in, the sun was dipping lower and lower behind the western horizon. It was becoming evident that they were not going to make it back to their home in Valdez that at a decent, reasonable time that evening. So, as the shadows wrapped themselves about the land and night settled in, they were finally drawing in closer to Hickory. Well, there was family that lived not too far away, and they were always welcome to come stay the night on the old farm. So they took the old Brookford Highway and veered off until they could veer off onto the side road that would lead them to the old house. Not our old house, but the old farmhouse over in the Brookford area. And they were greeted by the chorus of crickets and katydids, which were common for a cool evening. The shadows were swollen about the headlamps to where it was making it very nigh impossible to see as they drove. And drive they did, as the road dipped and turned and varied through a small patch of woods until it finally came to an open area on the farm where the house would set in the distance. Now, whether it was on Randolph's side or on Eloise's side, I can't exactly remember right at the moment. However, it was family, and it was their old farmhouse. And it was a great farm, had many, many acres to it. Well, they figured they had gotten there late, as the house sat brooding in the darkness. No lights were on, and they really didn't want to disturb anybody. But as they pulled up and pulled in around the drive to the house, they got out, walked up, and began knocking on the door. And at first, they were greeted by silence. But then the silence was broken by the sound of footsteps coming through the house. And they approached the door. The curtain by the windows that bordered the door moved aside, as if someone was looking out. But then the curtain moved back into place, and the footsteps trailed off back into the house. Yet no one answered the door. There weren't street lights. And electricity was few and far between, more reserved for the more industrial, high-end areas at this particular point in time. So, naturally, it was pitch dark with possibly the starlight if the clouds hadn't overcome the night sky. And so, once more, they knocked. And again, they were greeted by silence. And as before, the footsteps approached the door. The curtain shifted aside as if somebody was looking out, moved back into place, and the footsteps receded back into the night once again. Randolph and them found this rather odd, but knew that they were welcome because, they were family. And they were always welcome to come to this. It was something that they had often done before. So they opened the door. They gathered the things from the car, and they opened the door and went on in, and careful not to disturb anyone. They made their way down the hallway and up the stairs to where the guest bedroom was. It was the same bedroom they'd used many, many times before. And they all got settled in and ready for bed, as it had been a long, wearisome drive and a long day spent in Winston-Salem. And before long, Randolph and Eloise had fallen asleep. I would like to say that they had woke up the next morning and everything was all well. But then there wouldn't be a story, would there? You see, they were awakened a short time later by the sound of a horse raising an absolute fuss outside. And they could hear it galloping and thrashing about. And Randolph picked himself up off of the bed and moved so carefully to the window and peered out into the night. And he could see the barns and stuff in the silhouettes of the skylight. And he peered around, and then in the distance, he saw a horse, a white horse, galloping. And while the horse wouldn't have been anything unusual, this horse, with every neigh, with every breath, a gout of flame blast from its nostrils and its mouth. And it would thrash its head and was galloping across the land, and it was approaching the house quickly. Randolph shook his wife and looked out the windows, and they seen the horse, and it was heading straight for the house quickly and gaining speed. And it would appeared as though it knew they were there. So they began gathering their things and raced down the stairs and out the doors. And the horse was almost upon them, and it started chasing them as they got into the car and got it started. And as they began driving down the road to lead back out of the family farm, the horse galloped out on them at breakneck speed, with gouts of flame just bursting behind the vehicle. And it proceeded to follow them until they had gotten out of the driveway and was on their way back down the highway. That was not the only time that the horse had been seen, though. You see, many years later, when Interstate 40 was being put through the area, a motorcycler was traveling through the not yet open highway. And it cut across that family farm, the Interstate 40. And as the motorcycler raced down the road, just doing his normal ride, he soon found himself being pursued by a white horse that was breathing gouts of flame. And it was traveling at breakneck speed, just galloping and keeping up with him. And it had begun to chase him. And so to lose it, he went and veered across the yard and was traveling over the land and was trying to shake the horse, but it was burning at his back, just that he could feel the heat of the horse's breath burning the leather on his jacket. And to get away from it, he decided to ride into the house, and he rode through the house at such a tremendous speed that he hit some of the furniture and wrecked. He woke up to tell the story of what happened in the hospital, about how he was chased and how the jacket was burned from his back. But the horse had never been seen or heard from again, or at least not that we know of. The house still stands. It can often be seen when the fall leaves have completely fallen, and you can peer through the trees, and there's an old farmhouse that sits back, nestled in the woods right there between where 321 and I-40 meet. It's the old family farm. Who knows if we'll ever see that horse again, or if someone else may already have. You see, that was one story of where it wasn't the ghastly specter of a man, or, well, it was definitely something not of this earth. But in this case, it was an animal. An animal you would not really think of haunting or especially being violently in pursuit of someone. Now, some animals may haunt out of revenge. Now, everyone knows that there's a connection between an animal and its owner, especially if that owner's had that animal for quite some time. Our next story happens to be of such an encounter. This story is adapted from More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and is entitled The Little Black Dog. You see, Billy had this crazy notion that he was always seeing, or at least everyone around him thought he was crazy, because he claimed that he was being followed and he would always see this little black dog. No one ever saw the black dog, but he saw it. And when people would kind of question him about it, he'd be like, look, I am no more insane than you are. I am no crazier than you are. However, I see this thing, even if you don't. And it all began the day he killed Silas. Silas Burton. Well, you know, Billy's family and the Burtons had been feuding for quite some time. And it just so happened in one of those heated feuds that Billy happened to cross Silas. And in a matter of just being the first to get to their weapon, Billy slew Silas in cold blood, which was common if you've read anything about family feuds of the past. Well, Silas also had this little black dog that followed him everywhere, was completely loyal to Silas. And as Silas lay there dying, the dog would come over and whimper and lick his master's face, and then turn and snarl and growl at Billy. And after a few times of so doing, Billy just, with frustrated at the sight of it, just shot the dog as well. He just figured it'd be better off that they be together. And that's when the trouble began. The next morning, Billy woke up. And there on his porch was Silas's little black dog. And so he got out and he was taken out back, and he was like, he didn't know what to think of it, but then he just shook it off and, shoot, go on, get out of here. And he'd go on his way. And that was the first day of a long many years when at night he'd hear the scratching, the whimpering, and the barking of the dog outside of his door, and it would absolutely torment him by barking and not howling and scratching at the door to get in. He would wake up in the morning and find dog hair all over his furniture and his clothing, and it was frustrating, and he would see it, and it would follow him everywhere it went, but he was the only one that would see it. No one else in town would see it. And many times people thought maybe he had been drinking too much, or perhaps maybe it was the guilt of having killed Silas. But nonetheless, for years, he saw the dog until one day townsfolk didn't see Billy anymore. And when he didn't come to pick up his supplies, when he didn't come to get his groceries, when he didn't come to do his usual town business, some of the people began to go look for him. They found Silas in the snow, in his own yard, face down. And someone would have thought that maybe someone had killed Billy. They looked around, but the only footprints there were Billy's, except for where they had come. But the crazy thing about it that they noticed is that where Billy lay, there were black dog hairs all over his body and around his body. Yet not a single dog print, not a single footprints from a dog, paw prints or anything, were in the snow, nor had anyone seen a dog. It leaves you to wonder, did he die of old age? Or did the dog somehow get revenge for his murdered master and his own life? I hope you enjoyed today's stories, today's ghost stories by the Fireside. I'd like to give a few more shout outs. First of all, happy birthday to my good friend Ben Thomas. Been friends for many, many years. I hope he's having an amazingly good birthday. I'd like to give a shout out to Instagram Cosplay and Stacy Makes Stuff, who have been on watching and enjoying the stories, and anyone else who's out there that's been watching. If you're on Facebook and watch me, I can't tell who's on. Thank you for joining. If it weren't for you guys, and if it weren't for the people who continue to watch these stories, I wouldn't be here doing this, and I enjoy being able to bring these stories to you. Also, be sure to stay tuned. I'm going to try to get these episodes downloaded and shifted over to YouTube, so that the collection of seasons 1, 2, and 3 can be there to be watched and enjoyed by everyone. Also, thank you, Susan. I'm glad to see that you're watching. Thank you. And it's Halloween season. So we're going to have some more good, fun tales to come. Next week, I have a special guest lined up to come for the 30th. And if everything works out, I'll make that announcement once I know everything is in line and everything's good to go. And he's got his own special story to tell if he's able to make it. Also, let's see if there's any other. Stroh's Sinister Cinema. Be sure to go to YouTube and check out, or to the Be Your Own Hero Productions Facebook page, and look up Stroh's Sinister Cinema. It's a new series that takes on a comical horror effect, if in the grand tradition of Mystery Science Theater 3000 and the old Elvira shows where she would host a movie, and in the episode, the stories and the outcomes that took place were also affected by the movie. It's in that grand tradition. It was a lot of fun to be a part of helping film and do. So be sure to watch for Stroh's Sinister Cinema, and hopefully by the Halloween season, I can announce a streaming service where it can be watched. So stay tuned. And also, while you're there, be sure to follow Be Your Own Hero Productions for more exciting and fun things that are in the works. Again, be sure to go by the evanstonetower.com and check out the home for all things W.R. Frady. There are more stories, ghost stories, the newspaper articles from the Caldwell News Journal for the Vampire Killer. There are a myriad of things that you can go on and enjoy, and there may be even some more Legends of Lacy Road and Tales for the Fireside being posted up. And would love to be able to start putting up some more things about Whispery Hollow. If you want to learn more about Whispery Hollow, let me know. Whispery Hollow in the Lovelady Township is probably it is one of my favorite settings, but it's where Stephen King has Castle Rock and H.P. Lovecraft has the town of Arkham. I have Whispery Hollow in the Lovelady Township. And I believe everyone would enjoy it. As a matter of fact, be sure to go read the two of the big stories there, which are Dark Embrace, which was originally published on the Midnight Syndicate's Legions of the Night, and check out The Haunting of Parsons Manor, my own original ghost story, for which takes place in the town of Rockhaven. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this evening's stories, and I hope to see each and every one next week for another set of ghost stories by the Fireside. Till then, we'll see you in the shadows. Stay safe. Be good. God bless. Until next time.